Dirty South.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Southern California. Does that count as Southerner?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No.
Get out of this West Coast, man. I'm going to be singing Third Coast every day.
We're live.
Oh, we're live.
All right, back on. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone on the internet.
I have a bunch of quotes here from, so Paul Ekman and the other guy actually have a website about their influence on Inside Out. So there's a bunch of really cool quotes that if you guys would like, I will read. Yes. So a couple things that he says. So they say that basically the two big things you can come away from Inside Out is first, emotions organize rather than disrupt rational thinking. Traditionally, in Western thought, the prevailing view has been that emotions are enemies of rationality and disruptive of cooperative social relations. But the truth is that emotions guide our perceptions of the world, our memories of the past, and even our moral judgment of right and wrong. So that's one thing. Another thing is that emotions organized rather than disrupt our social lives. So studies have found, for example, that emotions structure, not just color, such disparate social interactions as attachment between parents and children, sibling conflicts, flirtations between young courters, and negotiations between rivals. So at least according to them, those are the two big things that I guess the visual nature of the movie points to in terms of scientific accuracy. One other thing I want to bring up, so just back to the storytelling thing and how it is that this movie works. I actually want to hear what you guys think about this, because I've been asking myself, how is it this movie works? Why is it that I was affected so profoundly? And I think that overall, this movie is kind of pretty similar to Finding Nemo in that it's the story of an overbearing mother. Joy is super protective of Riley, but doesn't realize that her being overprotective is what's ultimately hurting her. Just like in Finding Nemo, because she wants to keep sadness out of her life, and then she realizes that, oh, by keeping sadness out of her life, I'm doing harm to Riley. I'm stunting her development. Similar to how in Finding Nemo, the dad realizes that he's being a helicopter parent and that he needs to let Nemo spread his wings or spread his fins and kind of do his own. What do you guys think about that in terms of how does this movie affect you? You know, other than because I don't think that a documentary about brain science would affect us as much as this movie.
And like you were saying before, there's no real protagonist. I mean, you can kind of say Joy is, but
I think Joy absolutely is.
But then there's no antagonist. Who's the antagonist?
Joy. That's what. That's probably the most brilliant thing about this movie. She's both,
which is cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is anger not also kind of an antagonist? Because he kind of fucks up a lot of the plans.
They're trying to help. I mean, the movie paints it as if they're trying to help. They're trying to do Joy's job, but they just can't because they can't escape their essence.
And is Riley not kind of an antagonist herself?
Well, that's the weird thing because it's not clear if do the emotions dictate her behavior. Does she dictate her emotions? I know we just spent all this time talking about this, but I do get the feeling, if we are to believe that Riley's the protagonist, which I think she is on a level, because everyone is Riley.
Or antagonist.
Well, I think
both.
So there's actually an interesting way, and it was actually something that Helen said a minute ago that was really, I think, important. She said this film is less about like the inner workings of the brain than it is about the mind. And in the language of like philosophy or phenomenology, we would say that it's a film about consciousness, right? And the exploration of the different layers of like pre-reflective and then into reflective consciousness. And actually, I listened to a talk where Keltner quotes Jean-Paul Sartre. And Sartre wrote 2 books. His first book was on a theory of the emotions, and his second one was called Transcendence of the Ego. And in those books, he actually develops a sort of theory of consciousness or theory of mind that maps on quite well to what this film is exploring. And it's about the sort of different layers of, let's say, like pre-reflective consciousness, which are the activities that are taking place in the brain. And then you have memories that are formed then based on the emotional experience that takes place in this body that is Riley's life, right? You know, her first experience is that joyous, like, smile that she shares with her parents when she's in the hospital when she's first born. And so all of a sudden at that point, then that gets stored into memories, which then gets turned into some sort of reflective order that turns into the island of her characteristic that is like Family Island, right? And then each of those islands are reflective states that make up her character or that make up her personality or that make up her reflective conscious order or comportment with the world. But then there's always this push and this pull between like the ordering of your reflective states, which is the reordering of those islands, as they're being disrupted by the pre-reflective states, which are emotions that are sort of interacting at this level of the body. And then so Riley is the sort of complex of all of that. So it's emotion mixed with memory, mixed with the way that emotions form memory, and then how memories sort of would then impinge back on emotion and reflective consciousness. And there's this dialectical relationship that then turns into the body that is Riley. So there's like this warring faction that's always taking place that kind of fits within these varying levels of conscious experience. And so that's where you get the sort of the layers of protagonists and antagonists. They're all kind of protagonists and antagonists as they're warring with each other. If that makes sense.
That was super interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it was really.
All right, so I actually we're running a little bit long, but I want to try something for our editor. So I want to start putting maybe some reoccurring segments into this podcast. So I just want to get this. We'll do it live for our YouTubers, and then if this works out, we can put it.
We'll do it live.
We'll put it into the RSS feed. But Ryan and I were talking today. We're playing around with doing maybe some reoccurring segments here. So for our first exploration into reoccurring segments, we're going to try
Which one?
the Show Me the Meaning, pornify this movie.
Ooh.
So everyone has 30 seconds. 30 seconds to tell me what the porn version of this movie would be, starting with Ryan.
Well, clearly it would be the horny emotion would take over. Okay,
During puberty.
Yeah, during puberty, start fucking all the emotions and turn all the memories horny, so that the person that is Riley in the movie would be this, become this sex fiend, nymphomaniac, and so you'd have the emotions having orgies inside her brain while she's around having sex with everything and everyone around her. And that's my Inside Out.
Well, I think you
and
nailed
it's still
it.
called Inside Out, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it needs to be.
This works on any level.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, in my demented mind, I was thinking, like, what would the emotions be doing, like, when someone's having sex? Like, what do they do?
Well, disgust would be all over that, and
well, no, but they mirror what I mean. It would just be joy would be the only one there, right? Assuming it's good sex.
Well,
there could be a
I
little
don't
anger.
sad
There could be
breakup sex.
anger
Come on.
and
Oh, kind of
aggression.
anger. Yeah, anger.
Oh, anger would be
Rough,
there. You're
angry
right.
sex could be.
Well, that's what I said. Depending on what kind of sex it was.
There's-
Right.
Yeah.
Could be disgusting.
Fear would be a really interesting element to throw in
Fecal
there.
sex.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
Jesus.
some. Yeah. There's
You can have
a lot there.
all the emotions can have their own kind of sex, Jared.
All right, Ryan.
Jesus.
I mean, Austin, you ready to pitch us your Inside Out porn?
Yeah, I got it.
All
I
right,
figured it out.
3, 2, 1, go.
First of all, it's still called Inside Out. It's directed by Gaspar Noé, and if you've
Fuck
seen
yeah.
Enter the Void, the camera, how it goes like in and out of the brain, and in and out, it would go in and out of the mind, and then in and out of various organs as well, and it would kind of connect all of them together in some weird sort of montagey, flowing camera kind of thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that would be it. And it would still be called Inside Out for sure, or maybe like
awesome.
Inside the Void.
Ooh.
Or something. Ooh.
All right, I'll go next. My version would be that the emotions start like having sex with each other to basically try to create the perfect human. So like, they're experimenting with like, all right, so if joy has sex with sadness, then they're going to create like a half joy, half sadness thing. And then what happens if they put that in control? And then, they just keep on mixing and matching and having all these crazy orgies to try to find out if they can create the most optimized human.
So wait, they're birthing all these babies and just throwing them out at the same time. And what's going on with their Riley while all this is happening?
It's called puberty, Ryan. It's a very difficult time. All right.
It's like Hitler puberty, trying to find the ultimate human in his mind, and so that he can make it.
Yeah, I guess so.
God
Kind of.
damn, Jared.
All right.
You're fucked
Is it
up.
mine? Do I get to
Oh,
go?
Oh,
I'm
Helen,
fucked.
I'm sorry.
fucked.
Do I
Yes,
get to go?
Helen,
I've
it's your
got
turn.
one. I don't
All
know
right.
how well this is going to go over.
All right, let's
see.
hear it.
So I feel like one of the main things the movie that didn't really get to explore is the relationship between Riley and her dad. And so I feel like in order to really make things, how to kind of fix things between them, because she longs for his attention, but he's trying to get investors in his startup. And I think the emotions have to come up with a plan to be able to seduce him in order to bring back the happiness. And I
Freud
think
in the
that's
house.
Oh, I was
what...
just going to say, Inside Out Freud edition.
Here we go. Oh, shit. Yeah, I guess so. There we go. No, I think
Inside Freud.
that's where it would end, and then they run off and
I like
back
it.
to Minnesota.
Actually, a little bit of the what is it, stepdaughter porn?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, I think she's adopted too. Did you guys get because her parents are both dark-haired and dark-eyed, and I think. Unless there was some hanky-panky happening.
Listen, for the sake of your porn,
I mean, did you see the milkman?
I didn't see the milkman, but I feel... Well, they just, a recessive trait is blue eyes, I think, right? And so I think...
They got to get that right.
So their parents are dark-haired. Look, it works, I think. I think that's where the sequel's
because I was overthinking it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think that was pretty successful for a test. So, do you guys want to... Do we have any mailbag stuff you want to do?
I have nothing picked out. Anyone else?
I don't have my phone on me, so
I've got
Austin,
my
were
phone
there
on me. I can. Do you want me to?
Is there any that you read that you want to do?
I mean, there was nothing that was super amazing this week. It was a lot of people with suggestions. Hold on one second here.
Good suggestions.
Let me look. Someone suggested. Oh God, what did they just suggest?
Oh, The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I haven't seen it yet.
Jesus, yeah. It's a movie.
Oh, you didn't love it?
No, I love Dogtooth way more. I wasn't really into The Lobster, and it's kind of a sequel to The Lobster, I feel like. Or it's in tone and aesthetic. Andrew just commented, "You guys are the reason my Pornhub recommendations are so disgusting. LOL." Thank you, Andrew. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Andrew. All right. Well, then I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for today.
Oh, well, hold on. Actually, I do have something because we got something earlier in the chat, and so I wanted to do a call up in the chat. Okay. So we were talking about imaginary friends and our imaginary friend, and Christopher said way earlier, imaginary friends are overrated. It's all about tulpas these days.
Oh,
so
do you know what a tulpa
I had to
is?
look up I had to look it
I need
up.
to know.
I know what a tulpa is.
And well, here's what it is on what is a tulpa on Google. A tulpa is an entity created in the mind, acting independently of and parallel to your own consciousness. They are able to think and have their own free will, emotions, and memories. In short, a tulpa is like a sentient person living in your head, separate from you. Thank you, Christopher, for fishing me that.
There are people who actually try to go through these year-long process of creating an alternate consciousness in their mind, and a lot of this overlaps with kind of people in Japan who are in love with anime characters. They actually try to create a tulpa of that anime character so that they can actually have as close to a legitimate relationship with an imagined or an imagined person as possible. We actually Ryan knows that we actually got a email from a fan once who was very passionate about talking about his process of creating his tulpa, and it was actually interesting because I wanted
that was a tulpa.
Yeah, I wanted to approach this with the least judgment as possible.
This is interesting.
Austin, would you rather have a tulpa or be an incel?
Or have an imaginary friend? Wait, why are those the two choices?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're an incel, you don't have to be celibate if you just create a tulpa.
Yeah, if I've got to do it and I just bang my tulpa,
you could do anything you want. Well, I don't know. Once it gains its own consciousness, maybe not.
You can bang your tulpa whenever you want.
I mean, you don't want to go straight tulpa status. Then fuck it. I mean, if we're gonna do sex robots in the future, why not just have a disembodied, entity that's with me all the time that I can love and that can love me back? The amazing thing is if it's a product of my own creation, then it would be a sort of analogon of my imagination, which means that I create it the way that I want to.
Actually,
right?
I think that's
so.
The next
How does
level.
It create? Would it have its own autonomy? Is that supposedly the idea?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was
going to
say. It's like Frankenstein's monster. You don't want to create a suffering abomination that's going to wreak havoc and get vengeance on you.
You don't want your tulpa to go, yeah. Wait,
dude, why is this not a movie? This is amazing. Someone creating a tulpa and then it goes crazy. It's like Lars and the Real Girl, except the fucking Real Girl is a disembodied thing that comes to life or something.
Because it doesn't have IP attached, Austin. If it was a tulpa of Thanos, then we're talking.
Robo tulpa. We should have come full circle on this podcast and all go around and say what our tulpa would be.
Well, it doesn't have to be an anime character or a real character.
It can be anything.
It can just be anything.
What is the?
What would my tulpa be?
Yeah, dude.
Fuck. So you're asking what would I try to is this like an ideal partner that I would I just look, creating a tulpa sounds dangerous. It sounds like you're fucking with your mind, you got I just wouldn't do it.
The personality of Ryan Reynolds in the body of Kate Beckinsale. That would be mine.
Okay.
Does that work?
Sure.
Hell. Shit. Helen, what would your tulpa be?
Well, are they conscious? So they have their own consciousness, right?
I think after they are created, you can no longer control them.
Oh,
Yes.
Wow.
In theory.
I don't know. This one's tough. I really need to think about it. But I feel like
Yeah,
I've
the
done...
thing too, I mean, not only
Yeah.
is this is kind of dangerous though. Like my grandmother was paranoid schizophrenic, so
Well, wait.
like
why do these?
all I'm thinking
Why does
about,
this
are
have to
people
do with
trying-
that?
That's...
Well, because now I feel like, are people not trying to like valorize or indulge, in you will, the potential of
To
of
me,
sort of
it
breaking with
seemed
reality?
like or the way you described it, Dan. I read about it. Seemed like it was a subculture, and that they were perfectly aware that they were creating it in their mind, but still they wanted it to be as real as possible. And so, yeah, I don't think that there's
So it's just indulging in fantasy then.
That's what the impression I got. But I don't know.
Okay.
If
Because
someone
the
has a
more
more
tulpa,
involved
if
than
someone
that,
has
I
a
think,
tulpa,
right?
please let us know and tell us if we're
Yeah.
right or wrong
Like,
about
seriously.
Or just let your tulpa tell us.
this. Yeah, or have the tulpa email us, please.
Yeah. All right, that's
I
going to
don't
do it for today. I want to thank everybody for coming along. And I also just want to say, if you guys have a chance, I would really, really appreciate if you left us a review on iTunes. It helps us a lot. It means the world to us. So please, if you have a second, give us a review on iTunes. Would mean the world to Ryan, Helen, Austin, and I.
It feels good.
I want to thank Helen for coming and joining us today. Thank you so much. It was great having you.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
And as always, Ryan and Austin, where can we find everybody on the internet?
Well, you can find me on YouTube and Facebook at Ryan Shorts and Ryan's Game Show. All sorts of fun comedy stuff all the time, every day. I love it.
And Helen.
You can find me on Instagram at Flourish, Floersh, and it's mostly pictures of bugs and flowers. So
Oh, man, I
enjoy.
like the bugs.
Yeah, I love
I
bugs.
wanna see the bugs.
Bugs are dope.
And Austin.
Hit me up on Twitter, Austin_Hayden, and you can tell me about your tulpa experience, and then my Ryan Reynolds, Kate Beckinsale, and your whatever tulpa can have a chat with each other.
Fuck yeah.
Awesome. Cool. That's it for today,
What
guys.
are you, Jared?
Oh, my tulpa? I mean,
No, where can we find you on the internet?
Oh.
Where can we find your tulpa on the internet?
You can find my tulpa on the internet at you could just at Wisecrack, or my Instagram is at Father of Woody, which is just pictures of my dog and my girlfriend's dog.
Hell yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time, peace.
Goodbye from Hollywood, California, and rest in peace, Bing Bong!
Later.
Bye.
Did we not talk about Bing Bong enough? I feel like